All right. I guess we're live then. Didn't have any control over that. YouTube's just like, you're live now. Fair enough. Hey. Welcome. Thanks for hanging out with me. Here's the plan for the evening. I'm thinking I'm way behind on this thing that I was doing for back in like November-ish, where I was basically going through a bunch of people's Twitter profiles and mapping them. There was actually like a tweet that I sent out to sort of get the whole thing started. It was like, reply and I'll Wardley map you based on your profile. And I thought it was kind of a joke. I figured maybe like 10 people would respond, and then a lot more than 10 people responded. So I've been procrastinating getting to the other 130 of you or whatever that I need to get to. So with that said, one of the reasons that I was procrastinating was because, as I do, I made the process harder than it had to be. So I figured I could probably map out the process just as a way to sort of make sense of it, and then see how I could change the process using the map as a way to sort of express that, and then do some of these profiles and see what happens. So with that, I'm just going to like switch to a different view here. It's going to be ugly, so forgive me. I don't have the perfect OBS set up yet, but here we are. We've got one window with a kind of just a browser that I'm keeping open to help with keeping a list of all the people who I owe these maps to, and then we'll also look at the individual profiles with this window as well. And then I've got a PowerPoint window over here, and you may not know this, but PowerPoint is pretty awesome. Oh, I just realized the sound is probably horrific. Hold on one second. I forgot I was using the wrong mic. I'm so sorry. So, you may not know this, but PowerPoint is pretty awesome for Wardley mapping because it has this nice little drawing feature thing going on, and basically you can draw just like that with a mouse, or if you had like a drawing pad or something like that, you could do that as well. But here, I'll just undo that. So let's get set up to do some mapping. I'm gonna start with, let's see, let's just get ourselves a blank layout. Here we are, we're totally blank. And let's just kind of ask the question like, what are we doing here? What are we doing here? All right, so what we are doing is we are making Wardley maps of Twitter profiles. I just realized you may or may not be able to hear this in the background, but check this out. This is a cat in a box, and it's making lots of cute sounds. So I'm just gonna keep you here just in case. All right. So what are we doing here? We're doing Wardley maps of Twitter profiles, and I guess like what's the hypothesis here? And I'm gonna try to express this using a Wardley map for fun. All right. So let's start with our value chain. Actually, real quick, I wonder if there's a way in PowerPoint change the default font. Oh, right, that's probably the template, yeah? So let's change the template real quick. Because I like to use like a sketchy kind of font just so it doesn't look so like proper. Because really, like this is something I like learned from Chris Matz. It's like the more finished a thing looks, the less other people are able to contribute to it. And I think that maybe extends to like the less people can imagine themselves doing it themselves. So let's see here. All right, so I've
changed my stuff. Now I go back to normal. Yay, okay. So if I create a new text box, that didn't work. Oh well. All right, well at least I know, so I can just change the handwriting like that. Okay, all right, so let's start with our basic process, right? So whenever I make a Wardley map, I like to boil it down to like a three-step process of sorts. First is make some lists. Oopsie daisy. Second is turn that list into a value chain. And then third is turn it into a Wardley map, and then like ask it some questions. Well, and then of course like you gotta act and like do some different stuff. And that's just kind of like the basic thing that I think we're doing with a Wardley map in general. So to kind of like follow that process, I'm going to start with some lists, and the lists that you make are going to be of who are the users, what are their needs, what are the moving parts, aka the capabilities, I think. So anyway, that's kind of like an idea here. And then let's see here. Yeah, so lists. Who is this for? So okay, in case you're not like up on what was going on here, I had this thread here. Reply and I'll Wardley map you based only on your profile, and a bunch of people responded, and that's what all this spreadsheet situation is. Like I've just got a lot of people to respond to. And what I was doing was I was kind of like going through, I made a template, and then I went through and basically went person by person, and I was doing like a couple things. I was replying with a I don't know, like a time lapse. There we go, a time lapse of the map being made, and then I also underneath that replied with like an individual Wardley map. And the Wardley map themselves was of the person's Twitter profile, so it was like supposed to be pseudo representative of it, kind of joking a little bit about like but not taking itself too seriously, just like going on and looking at Twitter profiles and just being like, yeah, okay, how could I make a map of the reality that I think this person is in? So that was the game. And so I'll start with like the users, who it was for, is like just, I don't know, people who replied. I'll call them repliers. It's a horrible name, but as you'll come to find in mapping, like that's part of the game, is just like coming up with names that are good placeholders for things. And then let's see here. What did the repliers need? Well, I mean, they were here to get the curiosity satisfied. Like, oh, I wonder what a map of my profile looks like. And so then, just in case, like, I need to sort of map this out. So the user is the repliers, the need is the curiosity part of this, and then I'm moving on to kind of capabilities, and it's not curiosity again, it's Wardley mapping, I guess, right? So this is like our first draft of our list, and like I have an option right here. I can either double down here and just like go all the way through the process of making a value chain or making a Wardley map, things like that. Or I could continue to invest in the lists to make the lists better. And I think I want to invest in the lists to make the list better. So I'm deciding to do a little micro iteration right here on just the lists. So are there other users? No, I think it's just the repliers. Are there other needs? No, I think curiosity is what it's all about. What about the capabilities though? So I think what I was providing for them was, you know, the artifact itself. So the Wardley map, right? And then I was also providing to them like how it was made, like a video of how it was made. So that was your time lapse. I guess I'll just call it a time lapse. So there was the artifact. Well, while we're using better words, there's the map, and then there's the time lapse. And the creation of the map enables the time lapse to be captured. And then what else is here? There was like some video editing I had to do in order to get the time lapse put together. And of course there's like things like screen capture and so on. Oh, right, and in order to make the map, I had to have like the Twitter profile. And then also like I just had to find like there's an almost like an art of sorts to the creative like choices in what you pull out of a profile and what you think might be like funny or I don't know, kind or whatever. Like the creative process of producing the map has a lot to do with just like making good choices there. So there's like a kind of creative choices thing. Like there's some practices there that are interesting. So now I've iterated on my lists. I've got one user, one need, and I've got like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 capabilities. Excellent. And okay, good. So then I again have this moment where I kind of have this choice, like do I continue iterating on the lists or do I continue down the process? And I think this is enough to describe, I think this is enough to work with to have a kind of an intelligent discussion about like what the process is. So to recap, we've got this tweet here, reply on a Wardley map you based on your profile. I've got a lot of these to do. And now I'm trying to make a map of the process because one of the reasons I was procrastinating doing this for so long, like some of these were November 9th, 2021. What is that, like 2 months ago, something like that? I don't know, I can't do math. And I was procrastinating working on these because it was just like, it was a heavy lift to do even one of them. So what I'm doing is I'm kind of just like analyzing the process as it is. That's why I'm making this map, is I'm analyzing the process of the Twitter profile mapping to see if maybe there are some ways that I can make it easier on myself. And so to make the map, I've got my make lists step, I've got the value chain next, the Wardley map, asking it some questions and then acting on it. And right now we just finished our second iteration of the lists, and now we're gonna move on to the value chain. So that's where we're at. Now the lists were made of users' needs and capabilities. So the repliers need curiosity, or rather like they need their curiosity satisfied. Because a lot of them are like curious, like, ooh, like Wardley mapping, I haven't seen what that could be. I'm curious what this person would sketch for my profile. So I'm just kind of summing that up as curiosity satisfied. And then we've got all the moving parts down here in order to satisfy that curiosity. And the big kind of top two are like the map and the time lapse of the map. That seems to be like what satisfies the curiosity. So now I need to turn this into a value chain. And in order to turn it into a value chain, all I have to do is add some relationships. Kind of do a little bit of rearranging. A value chain is just a way of describing what depends on what else. And because we started with a list, we kind of cheated. And we made this a little bit easier on ourselves than it otherwise could have been. And so repliers, the question is like, what's the relationship between repliers and the rest of all these parts? And the answer is repliers depend on having their curiosity satisfied. They depend on the need. And so like, now we're going to go down to the curiosity satisfied and say, well, what relationships are here? And it's like, well, the dependencies are curiosity satisfied depends on seeing the map and depends on seeing the time lapse. So just to recap here, like what I'm doing is I'm adding depends on relationships. And one of the ways you can like figure out how to make those depends on relationships like super clear, make sure that they're the right relationships to have, is if you can kind of like imagine the words depends on being existing on each of those relationships. Just kind of like that. And then you can say it out loud like a sentence. So the repliers depend on getting their curiosity satisfied. Getting their curiosity satisfied depends on the map. It also depends on the time lapse. So anytime you see this this relationship, just like imagine depends on being part of that. And if that overall sentence makes sense so far, then you're good. So here we go. What are the other relationships? And I'm just going to try to like sort things out from top to bottom. Okay, so curiosity satisfied depends on the map and the time lapse. Is there anything else that curiosity satisfied depends on? Nope. I think this is enough. Okay, now I'll move down one to the map. What does the map depend on? Well, in order to produce the map, I have to be drawing on it. Oh, so I guess that's a missing part here. There's got to be some drawing, some sketching, what have you. I like sketching better. Whoop. All right, so in order to make the map, we've got to sketch it. And what else does the map depend directly on? Well, I guess. Well, no, I think of that. I think that's it. But let's keep going down. So what does sketching depend on? Well, the sketching depends on, well, how do I decide what to sketch? As I'm looking at the Twitter profile. So in a way, like the sketching is directly based on that. But I think it's more that the sketching depends on my creative choices. And my creative choices depend on the Twitter profile. So the Twitter profile is like our inspiration. It enables me to make creative choices. Those creative choices enable me to sketch the Wardley map. And if I can sketch, then the map can exist, and that can satisfy the curiosity. All right, so going at it, backing our way back up the tree, I think the time lapse is the other part that we need to sort of like figure out. What does the time lapse depend on? Well, I think the time lapse depends on the map. So the time lapse is of the map being made, which depends on the sketching and all that fun stuff. So that relationship is there. And then the time lapse also depends on the screen capture. So while I'm sketching, the screen capture needs to capture that sketching. Oh, which means screen capture depends on sketching. So actually I need to lay this out a little bit differently. So the screen capture needs something to capture, which is the sketching. Hopefully that's clear. But yeah, the time lapse depends on screen capture. The screen capture depends on sketching, and so on and so forth. And then there's video editing in here as well. Because in order to produce a time lapse, I have to take the screen capture and I have to turn it into a video, which happens through video editing. So screen capture enables video editing enables the time lapse. Oh, and I guess this means that the relationship from screen capture to time lapse is actually through video editing. So it looks more like this, I think. I think that's about right. So this is really messy. I'm gonna clean it up real quick just to kind of make sure that everything's clear. So just have plenty of room. I'm just gonna move some things over. And again, like to double check that you have a value chain that you feel good about, the answer is just to see if you can read it like a sentence from top to bottom. And just checking that before I finish making these cleanup moves here. Repliers depend on getting their curiosity satisfied. In order to get their curiosity satisfied, that depends on a time lapse, and it also depends on the map itself. Because remember, I was replying to people with both the time lapse and the map that I made of their stuff. So, and then the map depends on sketching. What I sketch depends on the creative choices that I make, and those creative choices are based on the Twitter profile. And that kind of goes all the way back up. And then the only one we didn't cover so far is the time lapse. The time lapse depends on video editing Video editing depends on screen capture, which then, depends on having something to capture, which is the sketching, and that's how that works. All right, so let's finish cleaning this up. We'll move sketching down here. Thank you, PowerPoint, for your assistance in making this confusing and difficult. All right. Map depends on sketching. Screen capture also depends on sketching. Screen capture depends on creative choices. Oops, sorry. Sketching depends on creative choices. Misspoke there. And then creative choices depend on the Twitter profile that we're making a map of. So here we go. We have successfully made our value chain. Yay. So recap. We made a list of the parts, the users, the needs, and the capabilities. We made a value chain of those parts by adding the relationships between them, what depends on what else. And that's what you're seeing right here. This is a value chain. Now, a common thing with value chains is people ask, hey now, like, doesn't Simon on his maps have visibility? Visible to invisible, and kind of like a y-axis like this. Well, that's, it's a true concept, but it's not based on literal position. Like because map is like 100 pixels higher than sketching, that doesn't mean that map is more visible than sketching. What makes map more visible than sketching is the relationships. So what I mean by that is it's not about like the literal y coordinate, it's about the relative position of something in a value chain. So things that are relatively closer, as in fewer hops through the value chain to the user, are more visible to them. So like the most visible thing to this user is getting their curiosity satisfied. One hop away from curiosity satisfied is the map, and that same number of hops away from curiosity satisfied is the time lapse. But if you look deeper down the value chain, the Twitter profile is like all the way down here. Like in this process, it's the least visible thing because it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 hops away from the replier. So that's what makes it invisible. But let's say that the replier, like there was a more direct dependency for, like, say for some reason the map depended directly on the Twitter profile. If we wanted to make an argument that there was a transaction where the map depended directly on the Twitter profile, well, then the invisibility, the relative invisibility of that Twitter profile decreases because it's now only 1, 2, 3 hops away through the shortest route. So the trick is, like, visibility is a little bit of a kind of, I don't know, red herring sometimes. So I don't worry too much about it usually. All right, so now we've got our value chain, and I think I don't need to make a Wardley map yet in order to talk about like why this was taking a lot of effort and why I was like maybe feeling like I could procrastinate a little bit about it. So let's see. So where was the pain? This is one of the questions that I always ask whenever we make a map. Or actually, it's one of the things that I try to like tell people to use to inspire them making the map. Where's the pain? Well, I know that the place where I want all my energy to go when I'm making these maps, when I'm going through people's Twitter profiles, all the folks who have said, hey, Wardley map my Twitter profile or whatever. When I'm going through the profiles, the thing that I want to spend the most of my time on is these creative choices. Like, that's the really interesting part. Where I was spending a lot of my time, on the other hand, was on video editing. And that wasn't very fun. Oh, and you know what else? There's also replies. So there's a missing thing here. Like, in order to actually get that curiosity satisfied, I have to send replies containing the map and the time lapse. So actually, this whole thing gets scooched a little bit. So the repliers depend on getting their curiosity satisfied. In order to get their curiosity satisfied, I have to reply. And so what I was doing is I was switching modes over and over and over again. I was, doing some sketching, and then I would have to switch modes and do some video editing, and then I would have to switch modes again and do some replying. And I think that context switching was part of this too. It was like just a little bit fatiguing. So, what to do about that is an interesting question. Well, I thought on this live stream, like it might be interesting to do some mapping of these profiles live. And what you automatically get when you're live streaming, because I did all the work to set up OBS and capture the screen and all this kind of stuff, is you've already got the screen capture kind of handled. But then what if I just stopped doing video editing? So you can already see I've kind of like jumped ahead. Instead of going and making a Wardley map, I've jumped ahead to asking questions about the artifact that I have in front of me, which is just a value chain. It's like, okay, what if I stopped doing the thing that hurt? What if instead of doing the time lapse, what if I actually just like let people find a timestamp where they could go watch their profile be made on a live stream or something like that, right? So actually, like I could do a substitution here, where instead of this value chain, I could do an alternative value chain where instead of delivering a time lapse, I deliver a timestamp to a place in the live stream. So then it would look kind of like this. Let me just duplicate this and then get this out of the way. Okay, so if this is our original, where I want to be spending my time is the creative choices, where I end up spending my time is a lot of video editing and the context switching that's required in order to do that. So back here and here. What is the alternative that I'm proposing? Well, it's a value chain to value chain substitution. It's like, instead of this value chain, I want a different one. So let's design that different one real quick. So I'm gonna have to keep the replies. That's always gonna have to be the case, but maybe I do batch replies. Like maybe I adopt an alternative practice where I do a bunch of replies all at once to minimize the context switching that I have to do in order to get into reply mode. And then instead of a time lapse, we can just provide a timestamp to a recording. Since we're doing this on a live stream, so the timestamp depends on the live stream recording. And the trade-off that we're making here is that like it's not a clean product. Like it's not like a pretty time-lapse kind of thing where it's like, oh, here's how the thing happened sped up. Instead, it's just a link to a live stream, and like if you want to go see it, you can like watch the recording. And yeah, like YouTube already has like the option to at least play it at double speed, which it's not as fast as it could be, but this feels like an okay trade-off, because maybe the thing that they just wanted in the first place was the map, and maybe I went extra and was adding this additional time-lapse thing just because I felt it was appropriate or needed or whatever. I was overproducing it. So maybe I shouldn't do that. Maybe instead I should have this simpler kind of value chain. And then, another area that was sort of painful. So let's like kind of moving on from that, right? So if I redesign the system to do this batch reply thing and to use the live stream instead of doing video editing, there was another place that kind of hurt, which was actually in the way I was sketching. So if I investigate the sketching part of this a little bit, blow that apart, and kind of take it apart into its, let's say, I'll define the parts of sketching by taking it apart here. Okay, what are the parts of sketching? Well, there's like a tablet that I was drawing on. And then there was a screen, like so I was drawing on a physical tablet, something called a Remarkable 2. And that's like a piece of hardware. And it has its own built-in display and stuff like that. But in order to share the screen, I had to like run a separate program to capture the screen And so there's like what would be the generic thing? Like it was literally running the app called Remarkable. Yeah, that's what I'll do. I'll call it the app. And then, yeah, that depended on that. And the trick with the drawing tablet, though, is that it's a drawing tablet designed for, like, notes. It's a little bit cumbersome for making Wardley maps because, like, just the way that it works is, like, a little bit kind of clunkier. It's an awesome product. I love it, but it's not fast for sketching. And I can actually sketch more quickly in PowerPoint than I can on the Remarkable tablet. So there's another like point of friction, is like the version of the tablet that I'm using is more painful, or it's slower. It has more friction to it. So I was losing a lot of time to that. And so now actually maybe it makes sense to like make a Wardley map, because I'm talking about comparing alternatives of like basically sketching solutions. So maybe that's a good cue to do that. So to turn this into a Wardley map, I'm just going to draw an x-axis. I'm going to label the 4 sections. Oopsie daisy. So in a Wardley map, left to right, you have the axis of evolution and the different stages of evolution. So stage 1 is Genesis, stage 2 is custom built, stage 3 is product and rental services, stage 4 is commodity and utility services. And what we want to do is basically redraw our value chain according to how evolved we think each of these parts is. Basically everything but the user. So let's see if I can make this a little bit smaller so I can work with it a bit. Okay, well that's fine enough. So now I have to decide how evolved everything is. And like the easy way of thinking about it is stuff that's on the left, which I'll just draw this in like gray so it's not as distracting, is like high risk, high reward. It's like high failure, high potential value in the future, but super uncertain. And then on the opposite end of things, in stage 4, things are extremely low failure. And in fact, like failure is surprising. And all the value that can be gotten out of the system has been largely gotten out of it. And now it's a race to the bottom. So, we're talking about decreasing margin instead of high potential future value. And then instead of being uncertain, it's kind of certain and known. And so each stage has its own kind of version of each of these characteristics. Like instead of being high failure in stage 1 it's high failure, but in stage 2 it's like failure is still expected, but it's disappointing. So it changes slightly from stage to stage. Whereas failure becomes like not tolerated in stage 3, and then it becomes low failure and surprising in stage 4. So there's a bit of a clear difference in each stage, but we're not going to worry about getting it perfect. We're just kind of getting it relatively right as we make this map. So let's start at the top. We don't position the users, at least I don't. I haven't found a way to make that useful yet, so I don't do it. Getting their curiosity satisfied, is that something that feels like a stage 1 activity or a stage 4 activity? Well, if I'm thinking about this, in particular, if I'm thinking about how this tweeting goes, like reply and all blah, 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 like that's a pretty like common pattern. And so getting their curiosity satisfied in that context seems like it feels like certain enough. Like it's not totally like ubiquitous, which is another one of the characters in stage 4. It's not like completely widespread, but it's like it's happening reasonably often enough. So I think it's in stage 3. So I'm just going to redraw my value chain here. Boop, boop. All right, next batch replies. Well, that just, that seems like it's a pretty straightforward thing that everybody knows how to do. You just like open up a bunch of tabs and you go paste, 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 paste. Although mine would be more like open up a bunch of tabs, find the right map that I made for that person and dump it into the reply and keep doing that, keep doing that, keep doing that. And then there's, I'll also be doing that with the timestamp. But I think batch replies in general is like that's a pretty standard practice if you want to reduce friction in the process. You just like batch up your replies. Although, there's some fun like stuff about single piece flow and things like that we could talk about, but another time. Okay, and then redraw our value chain. Here we are. Now up next is the timestamp. So all live streams have a timestamp. Well, at least, along the timeline, you can pick a timestamp along there, and you can even give a link directly to the place in the video where that happened. So I think that process, like timestamps are standard. So I think I can get away with calling it stage 4. Now making a map itself, so I'll just redraw these real quick. Making a map itself seems like it would be a custom activity because I'm making every single map in a bespoke way for every person. So I'm going to put that in stage 2. Oh, look, it's already there. Yay. And then I guess I could demarcate the stages a little bit more clearly, but you can kind of see like it's the position. There's a little divider here you can imagine in the space above. What about the live streams? Well, live streams are like pretty common. There are a lot of standard ways of doing live streams. I'm doing just kind of like a casual kind of hangout thing. There's 0 people watching, but like the reason I'm doing the live stream is just to make myself like do these maps and get it out. So if people show up and hang out, that's fine. If they don't, that is also fine. Not a big deal. So then, let's see. Live streams, I think, are stage 3. Just because there are a lot of different formats, but they feel relatively known. And here I am redrawing my value chain again. And then sketching. Okay, how evolved is sketching? Well, sketching feels like a pretty common, like there's a lot of different ways to sketch, but like it's a pretty relatively known thing, like how you do sketching. But here, like, I don't mean sketching as in the practice of like literally drawing. I actually mean, if we go back to our other map here, I mean like yes, there's the skill. Maybe that's what I was missing here. There's the skill that requires you to use like, the skill depends on the drawing tablet. And the app is what enables the screen share, but the skill is what enables the map to be drawn. Ooh, okay, so that's what I should do, is I should try to turn these things. I should substitute sketching with this stuff. So here's sketching skill. Gotta make these small. Yeah, so what I did was I basically exploded the sketching concept and turned it into a bunch of different parts. So now I just have to substitute those parts out. Okay, so removing sketching and remembering that sketching has connections to map and to live stream, I'm going to substitute in this more complex, or more nuanced, I should say, version of the value chain. Okay, and now I need to connect the dots here. So sketching skill, how did that connect? Well, sketching skill connected to the map. Like the sketching is what makes the map. And the app that I was using, the Remarkable Tablet app, was what enabled the screen capture, which is still happening in the live stream. I kind of have it hidden away there. It's implied. But, when you map, it's pretty wibbly. Like, it's pretty messy. So if I'm making a couple leaps here, it's because a bunch of things have happened in my head, and it's kind of hard to always, like, speak those out of your head. So I don't know. It's fuzzy, and you just roll with it, and kind of you get better at that as time goes on. But here we are. Here's the timestamp. Depends on the map. The map depends on the sketching skill. The sketching skill depends on the drawing tablet. Like I can't do sketching practices, both like sketching skill and like actual sketching as an activity. I'll just sub it out with sketching. That feels more right. I don't know. And you'll notice like I keep iterating it. I keep like kind of updating the model in my head. So the map depends on sketching. The sketching depends on the hardware of the tablet. Oh no, and my value chain down here doesn't make sense anymore. Okay, that's great, actually. So the drawing tablet isn't what depends on the creative choices. The sketching is what depends on the creative choices. And the app depends on, the app was about capturing the output of the drawing tablet. And the sketching depends on the drawing tablet. So there we go. We have a much more nuanced value chain. This is exciting. Okay, and now I just need to like finish like getting these things into the right stage of evolution just to kind of finish this out. Okay, an app is actually like the big important part, which we'll get to in a second. Where are the apps? Well, this was like one of many apps for making the sketches that you make with a drawing tablet visible. Like, so this was the Remarkable app, but I could have used PowerPoint, I could have used Miro, I could have used InDesign, or I don't know, Illustrator or something like that. Even Excalidraw. But like there are a lot of different alternatives. So that just the fact that there are a lot of alternatives is a pretty good, solid giveaway that there's like it's in stage 3. There are a lot of options. Lots of examples with lots of different features. I need a better word than app, but I will probably think about that. Oh, I'll just call it like a visualization app. That's fine. Okay. And the visualization app captures the output of the drawing. Oh, you know, maybe this relationship should go up here then. The drawing tablet enables sketching, and the sketching gets translated into the visualization app. Well, no, this is close enough. I think this is the relationship right here. The visualization app captures what comes out of the drawing tablet, but like as a human, I'm doing the sketching, and the drawing tablet enables the sketching. Maybe there's an additional relationship from sketching to visualization. I don't know. It's a struggle to get it completely right, but I'm not going to worry about it. So then, sketching itself feels like it's pretty common, although like everybody's style is different. So I'm going to put it kind of like on the border here between 2 and 3, just because I don't know any better. And then redrawing the value chain. Boom. All right. What do we have left? We have drawing tablet, creative choices, and Twitter profile to position according to evolution. Okay, the drawing tablet, there are many drawing tablets out there, so I'll put that in stage 3. Very good. Creative choices, well, these are definitely up to me, and again, going back to our previous image, it's where I want to spend the most of my time making creative choices. Like, it's not like the duration, it's the percentage of my time. I want to invest in the creative choices as opposed to getting bogged down in video editing, if we go back to this original value chain, or in dealing with the clunkiness of the sketching stuff. So, okay, back to here, creative choices, it's in custom. I think that's correct. And then one last thing, custom is in stage 2, sorry. One last thing is the Twitter profile. For all intents and purposes, this is like a singular thing that belongs in stage 4, I think, because there is one. There's one Twitter profile in the world, and it's the one that Twitter makes. So, and it's the one that I'm basing this off. So I'm going to say my creative choices depend on the Twitter profile here. Okay. And I see some folks stopping by the live stream. Hello, welcome, hi. You can say hi in chat if you'd like. What I'm doing right now is I am making a map based on this challenge that I issued a little while ago. I said, hey, reply and I'll Wardley map you based on your profile. And then a bunch of people replied, and now I have this giant list of people that I still need to get to, and I'm trying to motivate myself to do that. And the way I'm motivating myself to do that is live streaming my thinking about it. And in the process of this live stream, we went through the kind of basics of Wardley mapping. Make a list of users, needs, and capabilities. Turn that list into a value chain by adding relationships of dependency. So that's what this is. And then we kind of skipped ahead and we asked some questions about where the pain was in the situation. And I was definitely feeling a lot of pain around video editing. And that was creating friction and making every single profile that I was making maps of is just making it slow and kind of sucking the joy out of it. So, and then I was like, okay, but there was something else here in sketching. Let's like blow that up. And so I blew it up and I realized that there was like a drawing tablet involved and an app and like some drawing skill. And then I was like, okay, the app actually had a role to play here, and that's what brings us to turning it into a Wardley map. I was like, okay, actually the app choice matters a bit. That was another one of the pain points. And in order to get to this place, we decided how evolved each of these things was, which in Wardley mapping evolution has to do with like the characteristics and qualities. So like high failure versus low failure, etc. Okay, so that's where we're at. And if you need any help with figuring out what Wardley mapping is, you're like, what is this weird magic happening? Go to learnwardleymapping.com. You'll find a link to that in the description, and you can kind of read up on it there. Okay, so I already talked through the pain point of video editing, and what we did was we articulated a value chain to value chain substitution. In other words, we cut out video editing and we replaced it with something else. And in this image, we replaced video editing with just doing a live stream. And what that meant is that we stopped giving a time lapse and instead started giving a timestamp. Or at least that's my intention, is we're going to come out of these live streams having mapped a bunch of profiles, and instead of me spending a bunch of time video editing, I'm going to just give them a timestamp to go look at the live stream. Yeah, hi. Unholy magic. Yes, indeed. So that was the one pain point. The other pain point is the app itself. I was using a Remarkable tablet originally, one of many drawing tablets I could have used. I have a Wacom, whatever it is, drawing tablet. Right now I'm using my mouse, so I mean, I guess that counts as a drawing tablet of sorts. Yeah, I know. It's like using a mouse to draw is, yeah, I don't know. You get used to it if you get very comfortable with Control-Z or Command-Z to undo. And then the other thing was like the visualization app that was in play. The Remarkable tablet I was using, which it's actually right here. So this is the Remarkable. It's got an e-ink display, and so when you sketch on it, there are some limitations. Like it's really great for note-taking, really great for like doing thinking away from a computer. But when it came to like drawing Wardley maps live and recording that, like there was just so many moving parts to make that happen. And one of those parts was the visualization app. I had to pull up a Remarkable app that would live stream from the tablet to the screen, and then I had to capture that screen and record it, all that fun stuff, and then do the video editing. So what I'm doing right now already is I've substituted both of these things. I substituted the visualization app from the Remarkable custom app to PowerPoint. That's all I'm doing. I'm sketching Wardley maps in PowerPoint. And then the other thing I substituted was the drawing tablet for, actually, like, it's not a tablet anymore. It's just text boxes and mouse and keyboard, kind of. So this is a whole different paradigm of getting input. And actually, if I were to genericize this, I would say, like, this is input collection. Whether it's strokes of the pen or strokes of the mouse, input collection is the component. And so instead of a value chain to value chain substitution where we replaced like one set of parts, like sort of messy system with another different system, I just did two individual component swaps where I took one instance of a component and replaced it with another. I replaced the Remarkable app with PowerPoint, and I replaced the Remarkable tablet with mouse and text boxes and things like that. So this, I think, is reducing friction because, I mean, instead of having to like use the pen to erase things or like get the selection just right to undo something or hit the undo button and there's like a feedback lag and things like that, instead of all that, I just hit Command Z and I try again. And that seems to be, I think, reducing the friction in the sketching process overall. And I think this means we've driven all of the high effort stuff that was happening in the video editing and all the high effort stuff that was happening in the, let's see here, the sketching part, the drawing, the app, the skill, all that kind of fun stuff. We've squeezed all the pain out of that and adopted some like pretty straightforward standard things. And now I can put more of my time and energy on creative choices and less of it put elsewhere. So the ratio, like the less important thing is the duration. Like obviously, I want to reduce the amount of time it takes for me to make a map of a Twitter profile, but it's also about the proportion of where the time is spent. If I'm spending like 50% of my time on things that I don't think are necessarily the unique value of the process, well, like I'm kind of wasting that. I'm kind of throwing it away. And you want to squeeze that down as much as you can so you can put more of that on the interesting thing, the creative choices. So that's, I think now, like, I'll probably end up spending like 80% of my time making creative choices, and that's like great. Okay, so this is the map of the process. I guess like I should stop procrastinating on it and just get started doing it. So what you're gonna see me do here on the stream, I guess, is pick a Twitter profile from my big old spreadsheet and make some creative choices about how to, like what to put in a Wardley map, because it's kind of like it's kind of a joking thing. It's kind of like a little amusing thing. And I'm going to sketch those choices, and the sketch will produce a map. And then later, maybe on the live stream, maybe not, I'll do some batch replies, and the batch replies, oh, and here's a missing relationship. The batch replies also include the map. But the batch replies will just be, I'll just go down the list, I'll find the map that I made of that person's profile in the live stream, I'll find that timestamp, I'll copy it, I'll paste it, I'll also paste the map. And it's like boom, 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 boom. So this is gonna move much more quickly than what I was doing before, and the end of the day, result is their curiosity will be satisfied. Also, what's missing from this is Ben's alleviation of guilt. Ben feels guilty for saying he was going to do this thing and then not doing that. So, guilt alleviation. Very important in your Wardley maps that you alleviate your guilt. Okay, so I'm just teasing here. So, okay, so then Ben needs to alleviate his guilt. In order to alleviate his guilt, he needs to satisfy the curiosity of the repliers. Whew! All right, we are making progress. All right. So from here, I guess I could finally act. So going back to our original process here, kind of what I think Wardley mapping is about is like making a map, making an artifact. So that's these first three steps. Then asking it some questions, which we did by like talking about the pain. Like, where is the pain? What is the pain? What are the alternatives to that pain? And then acting and putting it into practice. So we're done with the questions, we're done with the map, and now we're going to act and put it into practice by literally making some maps. So, let's get started doing that. Exciting. All right, so step one is let's pick a profile. And if I'm going just down the list of who I owe maps to next, I was just going by like, first in, first out kind of sorting here. So there were a bunch of people that asked me to, they hit reply when I said reply and I'll Wardley map you based on your profile on the 9th of November. And I've done these folks and I've also done these folks. These were all on the 9th. It's just the sorting order is a little weird. Let me see if I can maybe fix that real quick. data, sort range, data has hetero, sort by date, and then sort by status from false to true. So I want to put true at the top. So I'm going to put Z to A. I hope that works. Oh, it works. Yay. All right. So all the ones I've done are at the top here, at least the ones that are that were happened on the 9th. Don't tell anybody, but I did one for VisaCon down here, but that was just because I was like in a good place to do it. But okay, who's next? Evan Wolf. Gonna click the Twitter profile, gonna open it up. All right. Phil/Evan says, goodness gracious, in response to my tweet here about replying. So let's pull up Phil's profile. All right, so the way I'm doing this is not like reliable or even right. My goal is just to be like kind and maybe a little bit funny and maybe like expose, like Phil probably does Wardley mapping already, but like just expose what a Wardley map could look like in terms of things that they might recognize and understand because of who they are and what they do and all that kind of fun stuff. So there's a certain degree of like profile creeping / stalking that we have to do in order to understand that. And then I need to like actually do the sketching. So in Wardley Map, you can always follow this process. When you're really comfortable with this, you can usually skip straight ahead to the third step, the Wardley Map. I think that's what I'm going to do here. Oh, and then I just noticed I got some tweet notifications. DRLJ Noble, thank you for being here. Hi, also thank you for being here. I'm so glad that you're hanging out with me. I'm just having fun, so I hope that you have some fun too. Okay, so we've got Phil's profile. I wonder if I can do something clever like, I don't know if it's not quite what I wanted, but maybe I can like, here we go. I'll just put the profile link here. Okay, and then what I need is like a template of sorts. I want to create a Wardley map. Going back to this, right? I want to create a Wardley map that is kind of self-sufficient. Like it doesn't need a lot of explanation to describe what it is, I guess. So I'm going to build that out, and I'm just going to do that, but whoops. Drawing the x-axis. This is my Control-Z specialty, how I draw with a mouse. I draw and then I mess it up and I hit Control-Z and undo it. Okay, here's my x-axis. I'm going to label this the whole thing, evolution. Oh, and I'm gonna even hand draw these letters with a mouse. You can hear the clicking. It's probably horrific. Okay, here we go. All right, and then I wonder if we have any options to like lock something. I don't know. I'll just do some research real quick. In PowerPoint, can you lock objects? Microsoft has announced a new feature. Right-click the shape and then select the lock option available in the context menu. Well, I don't see a lock option. All right, well, dead end. Oh well, we'll move on. So I'll just, I will design the template in the background here so that it's not gonna get in the way whenever I'm drawing and stuff like that up here. So instead of, for example, dividing this space like this, I'm just going to do what I did with this map and just like imply it by separating the bottom portion. So we'll divide it into 4 sections for each of the 4 stages of evolution. And I'd like to use words. So like Simon says, you can do any number of things for these labels, right? You can literally do numbers if you want. You could also do one of the labels from the evolutionary characteristics cheat sheet if you wanted. So maybe I'll just pull that up real quick. lwm.events/evolution. And I'll just copy this into my PowerPoint deck for reference. Wabam. Okay. And then, like, what Simon says, the other thing that you can do is basically you can pick one of these labels and put them here instead of numbers. And you've probably seen examples of his maps where he'll do Genesis, custom, product and rental services, commodity and utility services. So these little ones way up here. Just to boop, 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 boop. But the truth of the matter is you can use any of these characteristics for your labels. So now I wonder which characteristic I should put on these maps. Which characteristic is interesting with respect to elements that I see in people's profiles? So I could use Genesis, custom, product, commodity. I also like novel, emerging, good, and best. Actually, like what I would like is novel, divergent, convergent, and universally accepted. I like that. Let's try it on with this map. And this is just another demonstration of something that Simon talks about, where you can just combine. You can use multiple labels if you want. If you wanted to use failure, which is my favorite down here, you could use that. But I'm going to mix and match practice, data, and knowledge labels for these stages. So let's see. I said novel, divergent. I think I'll use language like diverging. Converging. And what was the other one? Universally accepted. So I'll just say accepted. I think that's close enough. And here we go. Here's our labels. So my hope is that they already have the context that this is a Wardley map because they literally replied to a thread saying, I'll Wardley map you based on your profile. So my hope is that is self-evident. And then what they get from the image, from the template, is what the x-axis is. And then these labels, which are hopefully mostly self-evident. We'll see how it plays out. Maybe I'll mix and match or choose different ones as we go along with each map that I make. And then there are two things that I want to like be really like clear about. One is like whose map it's for. And then two is kind of like where it came from. So this is of evolution of Evan Wolf, and this is by Hired Thought. And what I was doing before was like writing a little note, like made with heart, I think is what I was doing, by Hired Thought for Evan Wolf. I think I'm going to do that again. And now that we're templatizing this, like this is just going to make this whole thing move more quickly. Because that was another thing. If we wanted to refine this value chain further, I won't do it right now, but the parts of the things that were sketched included the map itself, like the whole template, copying the template over, all that kind of stuff. The components, the relationships, the actual value chain that makes up the Wardley map. And then the little note. I was writing a little note as well. So that's inside sketching. And here we're just going to templatize that so that it gets copied over. So if I'm making this a generic template, I'll just be like, made with love for @user by Hired Thought. And just to kind of finish this up, boop. I'm going to give it a little more room. Made with blank, made with love, for @user by @Hired Thought. And now I have to remember how to draw a heart with a mouse. I'm gonna have to zoom in for this. This is the most important part of the map, is drawing the heart, just to be very clear. All right, here we go. Maybe I should go with a smaller pen size. That'll make it easy. Good enough. All right. Should I color it in? That's good enough. All right. Back to 100%. Boom. All right. All right. So that's our template. And I'm just going to template. I'm just going to make this text really big so that when I'm looking at the little window trying to find the slide that has the template in it, I can see it in the preview. I guess you can't see that right now, but if I move it like that, you can see on the left-hand side, I can pick out which one's the template real fast. All right, so that's our template. Let's do our first map. Yay! So I'm going to duplicate this, and I'm going to say, here we are. We're back to Phil Wolf / Evan Wolf. Username is @EvanWolf. And our hope is that the process here is going to involve me spending more time on paying attention to their profile and like kind of checking out, looking at interesting things and trying to understand what would be funny or interesting to pull forward into a Wardley map, and less time on things like video editing or other shenanigans. Okay, Phil Wolf. First up, we just gotta like get into our powers of observation. So here's what I see. Phil's profile, first of all, has these characters, and I don't know what these characters are, so I'm just gonna search Google for them. I'm just gonna do the search, and I do not know. Let's see. I think that's Chinese. I don't know, so I'm just gonna paste it into Google Translate, detect language, and copy these characters in. Oh, Chinese detected. Good. Okay, wolves love horses. All right. Oh yeah, improving my process instead. That's a good point. Hi. So Hi says you probably need to add improving your process as part of one of your goals aside from avoiding guilt. Well, see, the thing is, like, improving the process is not like an inherently interesting thing to me. What I'm doing is I'm using the excuse of improving the process in order to unlock my willingness to like get started and do it, and like make progress moving forward. So it's kind of like almost the excuse by which I end up doing the work at all. But yeah, I mean, I guess improving the process is in our map here as well, for sure. But it's about like making progress. I don't know where this fits in terms of evolution. It's like I'm trying to move, get motion going, get my stuff unstuck. There we go, get unstuck. And getting unstuck will alleviate the guilt. There are a lot of ways to get unstuck, so maybe it's a stage 3 thing. Ooh. I'm definitely doing the squirrel thing where I'm like, squirrel. Gotta go chase the shiny. And in order to get stuck, I'm gonna use the excuse of process improvement. Like, that's gonna be the thing that enables me to get unstuck. I think that's like stage 3-ish. I'm happy with that. So, very nice. We're moving. The fact that I'm about to map Evan Wolf means that we're moving. So, wolves love horses is the translation of Phil Wolf. Phil Wolf's characters here. Although with Chinese especially, it's like really, it's really tough to make sure that the English translation is actually correct, because there's always like this context that doesn't come along with it. But this feels kind of meme-ish, right? Like, so wolves love horses. So I'm just gonna like throw that into my idea pile here. I'm gonna insert a text box. Wolves love horses. And so I'm just gonna throw this off to the left, and like we'll come back to it. The other thing I'm noticing is that Phil's profile background is a phone. So if you look at that image, it's a phone of some kind, and it's a rotary phone. So we'll just add that to our idea pile as well. And like, for some reason, when I see a rotary phone, I automatically assume like freaking, like Phreaking, just like it's hacker culture maybe. So that's my hypothesis for the moment. Product development. Yes, that seems to be another idea worth noting. Product developer. Strategist, privacy activist. Okay, so privacy seems really important. So this is just our idea pile, and I'll turn the idea pile into like some kind of like map in a moment. This is just getting my brain going. They work at Wider Team, so just gonna open that up. What's Wider Team? Identity of Things. Identity of Things. So Internet of Things is a meme I understand. Identity of Things. I used to work in for a university, and one of the responsibilities I had was managing identity, single sign-on solutions, federated identity, that kind of thing. So I'm going to Google Identity of Things. IDOT. Oh, okay, we've got words, which also makes me think idiot, which is great. I love that. Area of endeavor that involves assigning unique identifiers with associated metadata to devices and objects, things. So on the Internet of Things, this is about identifying the unique things so you can distinguish from one thing to another. And I'm sure there's like a deep thing there that we could learn about. That just sounds like hardware ID to me. Thanks for hanging out. Hi. No worries. And yeah, cheers. Okay, so we've got IDOT. What else do we have in this profile? Well, we have a phone number. I am probably not going to call that. Probably rude. An email. Good. Okay. Bellingham, Washington. There's a LinkedIn profile we could look at if we wanted to. Raw materials, ambient music album. Why have I seen this already? Oh, right, because I think Phil tweeted this out and I listened to it a bit. So ambient music is going on here. I think it's like Phil's brother or something made this ambient music album. It seemed pretty cool. I kind of listened to little sections of it. So raw materials is that. Okay, so at this point I'm probably overthinking it and going too deep. But let's see what we have here. So here's my idea pile. Identity of Things. Rotary phone, wolves love horses. This is where like improvisation kind of seems like an interesting thing to do. Like what's a kind of amusing scenario I could come up with? So if wolves love horses, what does that phrase mean? Is there anything I could learn about that phrase in particular? Wolves love horses. Is that like a catchphrase? I like this Amazon listing for a product called Just a Girl Who Loves Horses and Wolves. Well, that's pretty perfect. I don't know what I'm going to do with that, but it's going to be here in the map. Okay, so let's say wolves and horses are our users. That's what I'm going to roll with. So wolves love horses. Wolves is one user, and we're going to do the handwriting here to distinguish the things that we're doing here. All right, wolves and horses. The keyboard shortcut on Mac to paste without formatting is the most infuriating shortcut in the world. It's Command Shift Option V. So you have to hold on like 4 keys at once. So that's what I was doing there in case I looked pained. Okay, the wolves and the horses are the users. What do wolves need? Well, they need food. And that's maybe what I'm going to Google next is like, do wolves eat horses? Wolf attacks on horses are uncommon. In most reports, the horses survive and recover, but in some rare cases, wolves have been known to kill and even eat horses. So it's uncommon. Interesting. Horses are too big and strong for a single wolf, according to this like website or whatever. Okay, so maybe like there's like a it's not that the wolves are eating the horses, the wolves are hanging out with horses. So where am I gonna go with this? I don't know. Okay, well we'll connect the dots here. Let's start from the bottom instead, because I'm totally stuck. Let's say, oh, you know what? One thing wolves and horses have in common: they need privacy. All right. Okay. Let's say wolves and horses both need privacy. So wolves and horses are a user. Privacy is an activity that is it novel, diverging, converging, or accepted? In my opinion, privacy is a diverging concept because it is not something that is common knowledge, and there are probably diverging versions of what privacy should look like. Diverging models. For instance, there's the GDPR kind of version of things where like we really want to tightly control with regulatory forces what kind of data can be collected, and making consent to that data collection like part of the process. There's another version of privacy where it's like, oh, I don't care. Like, you can track whatever you want. And then there's like a different version of privacy, which is like browser-based, which is like, nobody should ever be able to collect any data about you. And then there's like, yeah, I mean, okay, my point is there are a lot of different versions of privacy. Are they diverging or are they converging? Are they going in different directions or converging on a few models? I'm not going to overthink it. I'm going to put it in the middle of 2 and 3. It's probably somewhere there. If I were to draw an error bar for this, it would be like, maybe it's over here. Maybe it's over here. I don't know. But I'm going to tentatively put it here in between stage 2 and 3, between diverging and converging. Okay. I'm going to draw my value chain. Wolves need privacy. Horses also need privacy. Boop. That's my value chain. Does my value chain make sense so far? Sure. Like, you have to get into a little bit of a funny place in order to appreciate it, but it does mean something. So, all right. Wolves and horses need privacy. And so now, like, the kind of way I'm thinking about this is like, you can start from the bottom and say, well, how do we connect the dots up to privacy? How do we create a system that adds up to privacy? And let's see. In order to create privacy, we could play some ambient music and drown everything out. I guess that's one way of thinking about this. Ambient music is, let's make it a component. Ambient music is a pretty, like, there have been plenty of people who do ambient music, but it's not like a, no, I guess it is its own genre. I guess there are a lot of people. I can just Google real quick, right? So you can always research when you're making your Wardley maps. Ambient music, what comes up? Oh, like, look, a bunch of ambient music mixes. There's a musical genre. Okay, so maybe ambient music is actually a converging thing. And what we're saying is ambient music connects to privacy. We are really reaching here, but I do think ambient music could enable privacy in a way, but by way of what? privacy through channels, right? So there are different channels that privacy would make sense in. Like there's data, there's like what can be heard of. There's written form, there's what can be heard, there's what can be seen. Okay, so I'm going to do it this way. So heard, seen, and what I'm doing right now is I'm reinventing the wheel around privacy. I really should just go look up an existing model of privacy. Heard, seen, and like text data, like visual. I don't know. Being observed. Oh man, it's like so messy. All right, I give up. I'm going to go Google privacy, like model of privacy. Privacy model. I don't know what this is. Not what I'm looking for. Various privacy models. Here's an abstract. Okay, you know what? Different Google search. What is privacy? That should get me some interesting answers here. The state or condition of being free from being observed or disturbed. Ooh, okay, all right. Non-observation. And non-disturbance. Whoa. I like that. That seems like really straightforward and clear. Okay, so what is the state of non-observation and non-disturbance? Well, what we have is, so these are the absence of a thing. So let's talk about the thing. So instead of non-observation, let's talk about observation. Instead of non-disturbance, let's talk about disturbance. So how evolved are these things? Observation, I think, at this point, is totally common and accepted. And that is going to, like, if you're a privacy advocate, that's not a good thing. That's a bad thing. There is an existing status quo that involves being observable that, you know, is in effect. And so, like, I think the way this is going to go is we're going to draw a value chain that is more like a threat model. It's going to be kind of like the ways that produce bad things. So privacy is dependent on observation, but actually on the choking off of observation, making it impossible to be observed. Similarly, privacy depends on disturbance in the same way. Okay, cool, awesome. That's how I'm going to annotate that. It's like, it's the choking off of this relationship that produces privacy. Disturbance, we'll do the same thing here. Disturbance. It really depends on the context that you're considering. But let's consider product development as a context. So what kind of products does our friend Phil Wolf, deal with? Oh, that's right. So we already knew the answer to this. It's about identity. Excuse me. It's about identity of things. So this is actually like probably a combination of physical product, like physical hardware setups, and then the software, or, you know, what's the other word? I forget. Basically software or code that enables the fingerprinting of this thing, probably from an external observation. Without getting into the nitty-gritty of that, that's the kind of product development that is being done here. So disturbance could be with respect to a product. And I want to relate disturbance and observation to the identifiability of the source of that disturbance. Oh, here we go. Okay, the ideas are starting to form. Okay, so identity of things goes on the map, for sure. Identity of things probably is converging, if I had to guess. I don't know. I could research and I could look and I could learn. I'm not going to do any of those things. I'm just going to put it on the map. I think it's converging. And it enables, there are two ways we could go. It could be about the use by wolves and horses of identity of things of Internet of Things and their identifiability through identity of things. There's that version of things. There's also like wolves and horses being disturbed by existing products out there. Okay, a scenario is forming in my head. Identity of things enables like the zeroing in, right? Actually, like to be identifiable could be like part of being observable, although like you have to be observable in order to be identifiable, because the only way you can be identifiable is by the attributes that you give off. So maybe that's part of the game here. All right. Sorry, this is the way it goes with Wardley mapping. Like the thinking is happening in my head and I'm having trouble like remembering to externalize all of it. But okay, here's what I think is happening. Your observation, your internet footprint makes you observable. And if you can be observed, then there's the potential for you to be identified. Or in this case, for an Internet of Things thing to be identified. So identity of things depends on Internet of Things, and identity of things depends on observation. Forget ambient music for the moment. Come back. Okay. So if you can be observed, there's a chance that you could also be identified. Okay. How does that connect? How can we make that connect back to either disturbance or to the privacy question? Well, what if we're talking about tagging wolves and horses? Okay, I've got it. So wild animals on a nature preserve could be tagged by conservationists in order to be studied, in order for their movements to be studied and so on. And so if they're tagged, perhaps with like maybe it's just a GPS device, but maybe it's an IoT device. Maybe we're in the future of this sort of conservation movement. And so actually what's going on is we need to preserve the safety of the horses and the wolves. And in order to preserve the safety of the horse and the wolves when they're tagged with these devices, we need to ensure their privacy. So in a real world scenario, you could have wolf and horse privacy being important. I love it. Okay, so privacy, going back again, depends on the degree to which you are observable and the degree to which you are disturbable. And the reason, I guess, conservation. Wolves and horses need conservation. And in order to be conserved, they also need to be studyable. Like trackable? Studyable. By conservation authorities. So in order to study them, you've got this IoT thing going on. Boop, boop. Okay. But then there's a conflicting thing here, which is, let's say a poacher or someone, like even if it was just even more benign, if it was just like tourists want to go find a wolf that is tracked or something because of some sort of flaw or whatever. Or maybe like even like a nature preserve has like a billboard or whatever with all the different wolves and horses and they all have names, and like maybe they've been doing fundraising or something like that with all that information. And so someone can go and they're like, oh, there's live streams of all these. Maybe that's the case. Like all the horses and wolves are live streamed or something. I don't know. Either way, the horses and wolves are identifiable or known because of the information. And so someone could go track down that particular horse with that particular wolf, and perhaps just like get in its way and create a situation where like there's danger of some kind. So that privacy is really important. We want to prevent disturbance, and disturbance by way of being able to be tracked and found through identity of things or something like that. This is so contrived and I'm spending so much time on it, but like that's the fun. Okay, so we'll move identity of things down. Boom. Okay. And disturbance could be caused by identity of things or by observation in general. Okay, so I think this is good enough for our silly map. The point is not necessarily to like get all the way there, but get to a perfect map, but to like show like a funny, I don't know, map the Twitter profile. This is probably too mean, I don't know, so I'm gonna delete that. But that'll, if you know, Phil, if you watch this, you'll find it funny. Okay. This is my map, and this is my story. Once upon a time, there were wolves and horses. And the wolves and the horses needed to be conserved, and in order to conserve them, they needed to be studyable by conservation authorities. And the way that the conservation authorities did that is they had Internet of Things deployed. Let me just fix this. In order to track the movements and activities and needs and all that kind of fun stuff of the horses and wolves. But there's a problem, which is that safety became an issue, both for the wolves and the horses, but also for like the public. And in order for safety to be ensured, we have to ensure the privacy of the wolves and the horses. This is so silly, but like it's actually not. It's actually kind of serious. So this is our contrived scenario, right? And in order to enable that privacy, we need to like very carefully manage how well, using this model of what is privacy, this like basic definition of not being able to be observed or disturbed, we need to very carefully manage the observability of the wolves and the horses. And we also need to be very careful about whether or not we're enabling the disturbance of the horses and the wolves. And so kind of like, if this is a threat model for the wolves and the horses, what we're trying to do is choke off these dependencies so that they don't, and basically the privacy is dependent on the absence of disturbance and the absence of observation. And so like lack of privacy happens when disturbance and observation happen. So that's the idea here. And because Phil is working for a company that does identity of things, we're saying that identity of things is part of the kill chain or the privacy chain here that is enabling the disturbance, because particular wolves and horses can be identified using the Internet of Things, exploits maybe, something like that. And at the same time, Internet of Things and identity of things are what is making the wolves and horses studyable by the conservation activities. So it's a messy situation. So that's our story. Evan/Phil, I hope you like your map. So, and just kind of going back to our overall premise here, this is the map I made of the process. What I'll do later is I'll do batch replies. I'll go, and Phil will probably be the first in that set of replies. I will send him a timestamp to the live stream that we're on right now. I will send the map, and that will be good enough. All right, let's see if we can do the next one a little bit more quickly. I needed to almost get warmed up for that one. Okay, so Evan Wolf is done. And I'm gonna shut up my phone. Okay, so taking Evan Wolf off of the list. Although I need to maybe make another column here where it's like notified. So map done and notified. All right, there we go. And I have yet to notify Evan Wolf, and that's the fun of it. Okie doke. Up next. Uh-oh, it's Venkatesh. I feel bad that I didn't get to Venkatesh. Venkatesh asserts that he's not a value chain. Fair enough. So if you're just tuning in, the idea was this is a process, going back to this, for me making Wardley maps based on people's Twitter profiles in order to fulfill this silly little tweet thing. Venkatesh replies, I am not a value chain. So that'll be fun as an inspiration. Let's take our template, let's copy and paste that bad boy. Made for VGR. And we're going to just kind of get some raw materials on the board. Boop. There we go. Hey Raul, thanks for stopping by. No worries if you can't stay. I'm just hanging out, having fun. Okay, let's make our I am not a value chain. Okay. I'm going to make a value chain, and that's going to be super rude because you replied, which I'm assuming is the game that you were expecting to play here. By replying, I would have to turn you into a value chain, so that's fun. Okay, so let's see here. I don't know if you don't know Venkatesh Rao, fabulous author, manages a bunch of like interesting long-form article stuff, famous for things like the Gervais principle and so on. Really fun kind of writing and stuff. And if I'm looking here, we've got a fun little profile picture. Like, I'm sure there's like something he's written about that. We've also got this background, which looks like a couple planets, perhaps pictures that Venkatesh took. I only argue in Darmok now. Well, that just seems like fun. Because if you don't know about Darmok, there's a Star Trek episode where there's a group of people who only speak in metaphor, like historical story metaphor, like Shaka when the walls fell. And there's a whole bunch of meaning that's supposed to be conveyed from that. So, speaking in Darmok. That'll be some inspiration. What else can we gather? So personal account, writing at Ribbon Farm, Hail Thread Thulu. That feels very... Gotta spell it right. So Cthulhu, Thread Thulu, that feels very rhizome. All right. So how are we going to do this? The challenge is to make this like an interesting map. Not to make a right map or a useful map, but to make an interesting map. So I'm going to say I'm seeing something already. Like the rhizome enables Thread Thulu. And what is the concept of the rhizome? So the rhizome is from Deleuze and Guattari, I think from Thousand Plateaus. I'm not sure. I've cheated. I haven't read the book, and instead I just had Jabe explain it to me, which was very awesome. But it's like the main dichotomy that's made in, or at least one of them, I guess, that's made is like the difference between arboreal and rhizomatic. And arboreal is tree-like, and it's like very neat and tidy ways of thinking about, for example, time. Like here's a tree, and we've got little roots, and they come up and they produce this like tree-like structure. And here's the ground, and it's like boop boop boop. So this is the arboreal kind of structure, and the rhizome is like kind of a tangled mess, and like funguses is the thing that I think is interesting. So like a network of funguses could be a single fungus, or it could be a lot of different fungi. But yeah, so that's the rhizome. Now that I've explained that, I'm going to erase it all. Yay! All right. And I probably got that wrong because I only have like baby understanding of that. But okay, so rhizome enables thread through loop. I think rhizome is a somewhat converging concept because it's like kind of part of this philosophy like background. A lot of people know about it who study philosophy. So what the heck is thread through? I'm going to Google it. Well, as in I'm going to search Twitter for it. Who says thread through? Primarily Venkatesh. I get it. Okay. My Twitter bio currently says, Hail Thread Thulu. It says, not useful in my mission to become a type of guy who lives in a type of place. Oh, here's the coinage. Thread Thulu is a tangled, tentacular mess of threads with Godelian horror quote tweeting and self-reference and looping going on, capturing a slightly evil headspace from your disturbed dreams. All right. So Venkatesh clearly needs disturbance. And disturbance is well, I was going to say that it's not common, but then like artists, for example, will go out of their way to be disturbed. So maybe it's more common than I thought, but divergent, or are we converging on kind of a similar model of disturbance? You know, there are a lot of things that disturb people, like common grounds there. So I think there's a lot of things that we can almost guarantee cause disturbance. So I'm going to put that in converging. Could be wrong, but who knows? Okay, so Venkatesh needs disturbance, clearly. And so I'm going to say, because he said I'm not a value chain, I'm going to say I'm going to reduction to value chain. And reducing things to value chain, the way to do that is highly opinionated and very often wrong. I'm going to put it in diverging, although I'm sure someone out there thinks it's converging. That's fine. But I view this as a very messy territory. Like, a lot of people criticize things like Wardley mapping or any modeling at all as being reductionist. And that's true. It is totally reductionist. It's about reducing whole things into parts. And that has the benefit of making that thing studyable. And taking it from a giant thing that is like not able to, you can't even think about it, and turning it into like subparts that can be thought about. But the trick is, if you use that reduction to stop thinking, like if you just kind of live with the parts and live in parts land, and you never see how those parts add back up to a whole, well then I think you're in trouble. And so you can do reductionist kind of styles of thought to your own detriment. But if, on the other hand, you use the reduction to understand the system better and make sense of it, well, that's kind of interesting, right? If you can make sense of it, then you can act within it and do all sorts of fun stuff. So it doesn't make the whole go away. But anyway, reduction to value chain. This will clearly disturb Venkatesh. Excellent. So clearly, quote tweeting needs to be part of this. And the quote tweet that I'm going to do depends on the reduction to value chain, because it's going to be a quote tweet. This is what I'm going to do. I'm going to, for Venkatesh, I'm going to quote tweet him with the map that I make. And then I'll try to see if, I don't have a full grasp on the thread through loop concept, but I bet I could at least attempt a thread through loop with this or something like that. So, okay. Quote tweet enables thread through loop, I guess? Which I'm going to say thread through loop is like probably Venkatesh's own thing. It's probably relatively novel. Boop. Here we go. Here we go. And so far, all I know about the thread Thulu is that it is enabled by quote tweeting. So I'll keep going here. All right. A thread Thulu is a tangled, tentacular mess of threads with Godelian horror quote tweeting. Godelian. This is Godel. I need to know what Godelian means. Godel. I don't know what I'm reading. Gödel was the first man to demonstrate that certain mathematical theorems can neither be proved nor disproved with the accepted rigorous method of mathematics. Okay. Any sort of formalization. Huh. For no such system can its freedom from inner contradictions be demonstrated with the means of the system itself. That makes sense, right? I can't express to you all the nuances of fencing by fencing. There has to be another medium for it. Although maybe that's a simplistic understanding of it. Who knows? I'm simple. Okay, so Godelian horror quote tweeting and self-reference and looping going on, capturing a slightly evil headspace from your disturbed dreams. Thread Thulu may or may not give rise to civilized, less evil texts like blog posts. Internet of Beefs was originally a thread Thulu. Thulu. Interesting. All right, coming back up. What is an example of this? Very proud of my latest coinage thread Thulu, creating my own thread Thulu about it all. Okay. Okay. So I think it's self-reference. Okay, so it's self-reference in quote tweet form as a thread, creating tentacles everywhere. Which, you know, if I came back up here and I replied with, if I came back up here and I replied with all the links to the maps that I made, I think that would be an example of a thread Thulu. Anyways, now that I understand it, I'm not going to use it. So, that is how it goes, Venkatesh. Sorry, bud. Okay, Venkatesh needs disturbance. Disturbance needs Venkatesh's reduction to a value chain. I'm going to quote tweet Venkatesh's reduction to value chain self-reference. Is, let's see, converging or accepted? I think that's pretty common. It's converging if it's not accepted at the very least. So the quote tweet depends on self-reference, and the thread Thulu. I guess it is a rhizome in a sense, but like depends on the concept of the rhizome. Maybe self-reference does as well. I don't know. Should be fun. Okay, now can we get Darmok speak in here somewhere? I don't know. Can't win them all. All right, Venkatesh, I have made you a Wardley map. It is highly implausible, but maybe I will do a thread Thulu about it or something. So, would that disturb you? No, that would probably not disturb you. I don't know what thread Thulu enables. So I'm just gonna like, what do you do? What's the point? Does Venkatesh say anything? What is the point of anything? But especially thread to loose. Interesting question. I'll leave it there. Enjoy, Venkatesh. And next. Oh man, I'm tired out. I think I'm gonna do one more. At least now I've got all the base stuff down. I can come back to this later. I feel a little bit more comfortable doing that. Okay. Anyways, I wish I had something more interesting for Venkatesh. But oh well. We will live our lives. Alright, Venkatesh is map done. Okay, who's up next? Malcolm Ocean! Oh, F yeah. Alright, let's see what we've got going on. So, this is for Malcolm Ocean. And we've got purple colors. We've got like a pretty dope. Oh, this is Sylvia. Very cool. I like that. That's a cool art background. A venture capitalist for the meaning and relationship economies. Hold on just a minute. I'm gonna have to think about that one. It's like one of those things where I hear words and I'm not really sure what they mean. And then I have to like go do a bunch of Googling. So venture capitalist, meaning economy and relationship economy. All right. I got some learning to do. Relationship economy. Okay. What else we got? Systems designer. Ooh, systems design. That sounds familiar. Feral, free agent. Cool, cool. So, for fun, I'll just put like free agency. Singer-songwriter. Oh, yes. Singer-songwriting. And then intentionality, which I have recently learned. Well, there's like the colloquial intentionality, and then there's like intentionality in the philosophy sense. And I couldn't get intentionality for the longest time, and then Jabe like told me about it. It's wild. I'll have to talk about it sometime. But anyway, intentionality, which I assume is like being intentional. And that's what he does with Accomplice. Okay. The pinned tweet says, spend a day making elaborate plans and then disregard them completely to make whatever you think is most compelling. So I like that. So we got like plans. And there's like a sensing thing there, like the what is compelling. Compellingness, all right. That's not hard to say. And then big picture thinking. Okay, so what I am getting from this so far is like big picture thinking depends on plans, but plans are meant to be discarded, and in order to discard them, and discard them in a way that's aligned to the big picture, you need a sense of what's compelling. So in order to know like when to discard and what to discard, you have to decide like what's compelling. And frankly, it's about like what to do instead. Shoot, I almost made sense there. All right, so I'm buying this so far. All right. So right now I'm making the value chain. I haven't done the evolution part, even though I'm like doing the work in the evolution space thing. So don't worry about it. Yeah, discarding is like, what's not compelling? This. And then what to do instead is like, what is compelling? And this other thing. And that other thing had better be aligned to your big picture thinking as well. Okay. Okay. All right. That feels pretty good. Let's see. Anything else we want to mention here? I bet being intentional fits into this a bit. Like in order to be intentional, you have to do big picture thinking and everything it entails. I don't know if this is right or not, but it's kind of where I'm at. So let's see that. Okay. And so VC, relationship economy, meaning economy. I like meaning. So I don't know what the meaning economy is, so I'm going to Google that. I'm going to have to go with The Meaning Economy by Manuel Makeda. It's a book. Meaning defines value. Good enough for me. So, in order to produce meaning, we need to be intentional. And meaning produces value. All right, that's good enough for me. Now I gotta just clean this up and figure out value for whom. Probably humans. I feel like Malcolm is a human. I'm a human sometimes. All right, get rid of systems design, get rid of free agency. All right, let's clean this up. And the way we're going to do that is we're going to figure out how evolved each thing is. And we're going to use novel, diverging, converging, accepted. Starting at the bottom, sense for compellingness. I think that is diverging because people don't know how to do that. They don't know how to listen to themselves. So that's pretty tough. Plans, however, it's pretty easy to make plans. I would say it's nearly accepted. So let's just redraw the value chain here. From discard to plans and from discard to sense of compellingness. Close enough. And then big picture thinking to plans. I probably missed one, but whatever. We'll figure it out as we go. Oh, what to do instead is also the other one. Yeah? Yeah, okay. So we got plans placed, we got sense for compellingness placed. Now, what to discard and what to do. Most of the time this is like gut feeling, or maybe some analysis is done. I think people use those as kind of like the two main practices: analyzing it or using your intuition. There are probably others, but it feels like those two things are so common. So I'm comfortable just leaving these kind of where they are in stage 3. Okay, I'm going to simplify this. Do or discard. Oh, and I could probably combine discard and do because it's a choice about like, it's a decision. It's a do-discard decision. Do I do this or do I discard it? What could I call that? Well, I could just call it a do or discard decision. Do or discard. That dramatically simplifies things, yeah? So a do or discard decision. Nice, okay. A do or discard decision needs to be based on your plans. Your plans which enable big picture thinking. But it also depends on your sense for compellingness. because you can decide to not do it. You can just decide to discard it instead. So great. Okay, so we got plans here. We got do or discard decision. And where is that? That's like, yeah, I think I was going to put that in converging. So let's do that. Big picture thinking. What? What is this? What does it mean to think of the big picture? Let's assume that that translates to long time span thought. I'm sure Malcolm has written a blog post or something somewhere. So if it's long time span thought, is that a diverging, converging, accepted activity? Ooh, that's a tough one. I think it's converging. I don't know. I'm not 100% confident on that. But that is okay. I am allowed to not be confident. Boop. Let's see. Yep. So sense for compellingness and plans produce do or discard decisions. Plans are what enables big picture thinking. Do or discard decisions enable big picture thinking? Well, I suppose if they're aligned with the big picture, then that would be a yes. So, okay, so we'll leave that as it is. Great. Okay, and then where is big picture thinking on this? I already put it here. Good, okay. I can tell I'm getting tired because that's asking questions twice. Being intentional. Oh my goodness. I think we all agree that this is a best practice, but like, how many people do it? I don't know. So, let me think about failure. Failure's common. Yeah, I think it's one of those things where like the practice of being intentional is expected to be a best practice, but in actual, like in doing it in the activity, few people actually do it. So, bummer. Okay, but being intentional enables you to do stuff that has meaning. So, meaning though, like meaning is broad, dude. It is so broad. I'm gonna say it's diverging. There we go. And in the meaning economy, we're saying that meaning is what produces value. So I'm going to just shortcut this by saying like humans depend on meaning. That's what provides them value. Like the thing that's being transmitted is value. Cool. Meaning provides value to humans. Meaning depends on being intentional. The other thing that's missing is like action, actually doing stuff. I'm going to put that in converging. And action creates meaning, especially if it's intentional. Action is also based on that do or discard decision. I don't know, that seems close enough. So, yeah, there you go. Malcolm, I hope that's interesting. I think it kind of is. I feel like I learned a little bit about what, I've seen Compos. I've heard, well, I haven't like looked through it lately. I kind of know that it's like goal setting or something, but I don't think I realized that you were using it to build this. Now this could be wrong. I might have the wrong version of it, but yeah, interesting. Okay, so with that, we've done 3 of these. So now what I'm going to do off stream to kind of wrap this up is I'm going to end the stream. I'm going to export each of these maps. And then once the stream renders, I'm going to go back and find the timestamps. And well, I guess I could probably find the timestamps on the instant replay. So I could probably already get those. Remember, I'm going back to this process, right? So I'm gonna get those timestamps. I'm going to export the map images. I'm probably just gonna take screenshots of them, honestly. and then I'm going to combine those into a reply. Boop. I just realized this map is wrong. Arg. I should be going to batch replies, not timestamps. So anyways, that's how we do it. Thank you, if you are watching this later, for hanging out and taking a look. I don't expect most people to watch this. It's just kind of a useful way for me to actually get started on this stuff again. So thanks for being here. If you are watching it, though, I appreciate you, and I hope you have the loveliest of evenings, mornings, days, what have you. And with that, I will leave you. Have a lovely time. Bye.